Thank you. So that's a good transition into my housekeeping slide. Thank you, Kelly. So this webinar will be recorded. We will post the recording on our website under research. Also, to try to reduce the number of distractions, we have everybody muted and unable to share your videos. So we do ask as we go through this, if you have questions that pop up, please add them to the chat feature. Our goal is to get through the research overview, talk about outreach and communications, and then spend the last half of the webinar or so answering any questions you may have. Also, feel free if you want to ask a specific question or have a discussion. I'm happy to talk offline. So if you want to reach out to me, we could set up a time to talk as well. So what we're going to cover today is a brief overview of our program, the research program in specific, and then run you through the proposal guidance. We find it helpful, and I do as a researcher myself. Sometimes as we review these RFPs, they can be overwhelming. So I find it helpful to have a webinar format or presentation format to really pull out some of the highlights of the things we're looking for in our pre-proposal stage. So I'll go through the introduction, briefly discuss some of the priorities in the RFP, the eligibility information, award information, talk about the schedule and submission, then talk about the pre-proposal preparation guidance and the pre-proposal review process. And then I'll turn it over to Sarah, who will talk about extension or outreach, and Kelly will mention or discuss communications briefly. There'll be no breaking news today, I don't think, but just providing another format, another avenue to provide an overview of this request for proposals. So who is Sea Grant? Hopefully you all know who we are and are interested in applying for our research competition. But we're one of 34 programs around the United States and the territories of Guam and Puerto Rico, administered through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So our base federal funding does come through NOAA within the Department of Commerce. Our program specifically is a collaboration between NOAA, the National Sea Grant Office, and the Pennsylvania State University. So all our staff are employees of the university. And similar to other Sea Grant programs, our mission is to enhance the use and conservation of Pennsylvania's coastal, marine, and Great Lakes resources to create a healthy environment, resilient, inclusive communities, and a strong and sustainable economy. And we strive every day to implement this mission through our 4 functional areas, those being research, extension, education, and communications. And we'll touch upon all those today. We have staff located throughout the Commonwealth with 3 main office locations: Erie, Pennsylvania, based out of the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. We have 6 staff located there. We also have an office at Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission headquarters outside of Harrisburg. And then we have 2 staff working remotely in the Philadelphia area, 2 staff in that Harrisburg office. Our work is focused primarily on those watersheds, so the Lake Erie watershed, the Susquehanna River drainage, and Delaware River watershed. And so while we look to fund projects in those regions, we're also open to funding projects outside those regions if the science and the research is applicable to those regions of Pennsylvania. So just a brief overview of our research program. So we started as a program in Pennsylvania in 1998. We are one of the younger or newer programs. And starting in about 2000, we started funding mini grants. So these were just small, a couple $100, couple $1,000, really start building relationships. And then as we grew as a program, we started funding larger projects. So today we've funded over $7 million in research, funding 197 projects at 50 institutions. It wasn't until 2012 we started to run a competitive research process and competition. And so since 2012, when we implemented the request for proposals process, we funded nearly $6 million in research for 76 projects at 26 institutions. And I encourage you to visit our website, which I think Kelly will run through as well, to get an idea of the type of projects we've funded in the past, so you can get an idea of the kind of work we do. As I mentioned, we run a biennial research competition, so every 2 years we release a request for proposals. And really, this is to address issues that are identified through our advisory councils, or council, our stakeholders, and then our staff. So what are the needs of our stakeholders and staff? A big part of our research program and the research projects themselves is providing training for the next generation of scientists. So through the research process and other extension projects and education projects, since 2010, we've supported over 190 undergraduate students, 40 graduate students, 31 PhD students, and 9 Canals fellows. So moving on to the RFP itself, just a brief introduction. So as you'll read through there, we seek proposals that provide scientific and socioeconomic information that can inform management and policy decisions for healthy coastal ecosystems, resilient communities, economies, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and environmental literacy and workforce development in Pennsylvania. And so I've tried to highlight or bold some of the bigger topics within these bullets. So projects must demonstrate a connection between the proposed research and the focus areas, goals, and or example priority topics highlighted in the RFP. The caveat being there is really we're looking for projects that are address our strategic plan. So I'll discuss the focus areas briefly along with the associated goals. We do, however, identify some example projects through our advisory councils and staff, with the caveat being that if it's not one of those example topics, that we won't fund it. We will consider proposals outside of those example topics. So really, we're looking for projects that address our focus areas and the goals within those focus areas. But we do try to provide some example topics as well. There must be you must demonstrate a direct connection between users beyond academia, such as resource managers, community scientists, communities, and or informal and formal learners. And so Sarah Stallman will talk more on outreach and engaging in disseminating information to key audiences. But that's a key component of your proposal and application. And discussions with Sea Grant staff and other outreach partners is encouraged in the early stages of pre-proposal development. So you as PIs are encouraged to engage and collaborate with our staff, end users, and or other outreach specialists in your organization or partnering organization. We do offer our funding in an open competitive basis as well. So I'll briefly run through our 4 focus areas, goals, and some of the example topics. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. This is all in the RFP. I would encourage you, if you have specific questions related to these focus areas and topics, please reach out to me. I think we also have Michelle Niedermeyer on the call, or who will be joining us, who is our education lead. And so if you have any questions related to environmental literacy and workforce development and some of the goals and example research topics here, I encourage you to reach out to Michelle. She'll be happy to speak with you. So I do want to stress with the environmental literacy and workforce development focus area, we are not looking for education projects or implementation projects. For example, we're not looking for PIs to apply for funding to design a summer camp and deliver a summer camp for K through 12 students. What we're looking at is the science behind education. And 2 topics that were identified were investigating the use and effectiveness of outdoor learning spaces at schools, and examine how non-formal environmental education providers have adapted and or created programming to support and guide K through 12 schools. So we're looking at the science behind environmental literacy and workforce development rather than implementing K through 12 or other education programs. The next one is healthy coastal ecosystems. So the research topics there is looking at measures and tools to protect, prevent, and prepare for, understand, control, or mitigate the introduction or range expansion of aquatic invasive species in PA waters. And then also evaluate ecosystem services of critical habitats before and after introduction of aquatic invasive species. We're also looking at identifying and evaluating potential ecological and human health effects of marine debris and emerging contaminants, including microplastics and PFAS, and develop solutions to address their effects. The third focus area, this is new to our program in the current 2024 to 27 strategic plan, and that is sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. So a couple topics that we're interested in is development of a tool aquaculture farmers can use to self-assess farm sustainability. Also research to determine how regulations in the Great Lakes region affect aquaculture production, and then economic assessment and analysis of the aquaculture industry within Pennsylvania. And then the last focus area our strategic plan addresses is resilient communities economies. So a couple of the prior example research topics within that focus area are evaluate and model littoral drift along the Pennsylvania Lake Erie coast and the influence of littoral drift on sand nourishment needs on Presque Isle State Park beaches. In addition, develop technologies and research-based strategies for creating and maintaining resilient communities in Pennsylvania. And then the last one is assess the economic value of natural resources and their value to recreationists and communities. So looking at the economic impact of aquatic invasive species, as well as the contribution of the recreational boating industry in all three watersheds. So that's the focus areas, the goals, and some of the example topics that we're interested in. I would encourage you, if you have any questions, please reach out to me on those topics. And so the next thing I'd like to discuss is eligibility. So Pennsylvania Sea Grant encourages all eligible applicants to apply for this research opportunity. In particular, we're interested in early career scientists and/or persons who have partnered with or plan to mentor early career scientists. Also, multi-campus and interdisciplinary teams are welcome to apply. And last here is projects that support students to become strong scientists and provide opportunities to practice community engagement and actionable science. And this is a big one here. We like to see our research funding go towards research support. In this current RFP, we have increased the funding request amount pretty significantly, understanding that cost for student support, like everything else, is increasing. So we do like to see students being supported through this research process. PIs must be affiliated with an academic institution, research lab, or other institution with a research or science-based mission in Pennsylvania. This includes both nonprofit organizations and state agencies. Co-PIs can be from institutions outside of Pennsylvania. However, those PIs must be located within Pennsylvania. In addition, only one preliminary proposal per lead principal investigator may be submitted. However, you can be listed as a co-PI on as many proposals as you desire. Direct salary support for individuals from federal agencies and for-profit and foreign organizations is not allowed under this competition. And Pennsylvania Sea Grant Extension and Education Communications personnel are welcome to serve as co-PIs or senior personnel on these applications. So just a brief overview of the award information. These projects would run February 1, 2026 to January 31st, 2028. Through the process, we anticipate funding 4 to 6 proposals at approximately $75,000 per year per grant. So the request for the 2-year projects may not exceed $150,000, not including indirect cost. So the indirect costs are in addition to that $150,000 request or whatever your request is. We do require a minimum 50% non-federal cost match on all these awards. So you must provide a dollar non-federal match for every $2 federal spending requested. And I believe we provide some guidance within the RFP. I think page 13 goes over match. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on what's eligible for match. We also have our fiscal officer, Shelly Riddell, who's with us today. You can email her as well if you have any questions on match eligibility as you prepare your budgets. Total budget must be distributed equally over the 2 years. Our funding comes in 1 year increments, so we're not funded every 2 years, every 4 years. So it's important for us to be able to budget and manage our budget is to know how much we're distributing every year. So for example, if you ask for 60,000 in year one, don't ask for 20,000 in year two, or 60,000 in year one or 110,000 in year two. Make it as close as you can get it. All PIs must comply within these guidelines. Investigators from Penn State University and the Penn State campuses may only request indirect charges at the off-campus other sponsored activities rate, which is currently 13.5%. I believe that will be revised. And this is per our agreement with the Office of Senior Vice President of Research. And so Penn State applicants, if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss that in further detail. And so funding of all proposals is contingent upon Pennsylvania Sea Grants allocation from NOAA in the FY 26 and 27 federal budgets. And so I just want to provide a couple example budgets. So example one would be a non-Penn State institution, whereas example two would be Penn State University or another campus of Penn State. And so you can see both have a total direct cost request of 150,000. However, institution one has an indirect rate of 49.5%. So your indirect cost would be 74,250 with a total request of $224,250. With a 2-to-1 match, you would be obligated to provide 112,125 in match. Whereas Penn State applicants have the direct cost of 150,000. However, with your indirect rate of 13.5%, you'd be looking at $20,250 in indirect costs for a total request of $170,250. And then further breaking down the budget. So when we discuss having the budgets match year to year, so if you're requesting $150,000 overall in your budget, make sure you're requesting $75,000 in year one, $75,000 in year two. Now, within the budget categories, you can adjust your funding request. So maybe you ask for less salary in year one and more supplies and equipment, whereas year two, you need more time for salary, less for equipment. So the budget categories can change, but the overall budget request, we ask to keep those as close to each other as possible. And so just briefly looking at the schedule and submission timeline. So the pre-proposals are due to me by February 14th, 2025, 5 p.m. The request for full proposals will be issued by March 14th, 2025, with full proposals due to our office by May 30th, 2025. Full proposal selection and PIs will be notified, hopefully by September 30th, 2025, and with full proposals being submitted to NOAA prior to October 31st and a project start date of February 1. We typically announce the projects publicly once the funding is in place, with an ideal project completion of January 31st, 2028. As far as guidance on emailing those proposals to me, please send me a non-scanned PDF format to the email here, srafferty@psu.edu. And please use the subject line PA Sea Grant Pre-Proposal 2026 to 2028. Unfortunately, pre-proposals received after the deadline will not be accepted or considered. And so some of the preparation guidance, PIs must follow the instructions regarding pre-proposal components as explained in the guidelines, or we risk the pre-proposal being rejected. And so we ask for a cover page. You can read through the RFP and see all the details that are required in there. But one of the big ones we ask for in there is make sure you list the RFP focus area, the RFP goal or strategic plan goal that your project will be addressing. And if you are addressing an example research topic, please include that in the cover page as well. The project narrative is we ask for a 3-page maximum. We don't want maximum work at the pre-proposal level, so we try to keep that to a low page limit. So within that, include your abstract, your intro, background, rationale, the objectives of your project, a general approach and methods, your anticipated results and outcomes, the student opportunities this project will provide, as well as your literature cited. Also, please include a budget estimate. You can use the 90-4 form that's available on our website if you would like. But a couple things, be sure you're including your non-federal match commitment in that pre-proposal budget. Also think about funding to support the proposed outreach plan that you'll develop. And then again, I just want to emphasize the total budget must be distributed equally over the 2 years. Also provide a budget narrative and then an outreach plan as well, which Sarah Stallman will talk more about. And then the last thing is a curriculum by day, 2-page maximum per PI or co-PI. And so what's the review process at the pre-proposal stage? So we'll review all pre-proposal applications to ensure completeness and compliance with proposal formatting. If the pre-proposal does not adhere to these instructions, it may not move forward to the technical review. So at the pre-proposal stage, our leadership staff will conduct a review of all pre-proposals through the process, ensuring no conflicts of interest as well. And so pre-proposals will be evaluated based on the following criteria. The first being relevance to program focus areas, goals, and RFP priorities or example topics. So how well does the proposed research address an important issue, problem, or opportunity relating to the priority focus areas identified in the RFP? And is the problem to be addressed valid? The second category we look at is scientific merit. Is the proposed research scientifically sound, and does it have the potential to advance our current understanding of the problem? And then outreach plan. So does the proposal include a strong outreach plan? Have potential applications of the research and end users of those applications been identified? And has a method of information dissemination been identified? Also, we evaluate student involvement. So will students be actively involved in the research, qualifications of the investigators? And then the last thing is budget and justification. So we look at, is the budget reasonable and justified for the work being proposed? So those PIs who pre-proposals review favorably will be encouraged to submit full proposals. I do want to emphasize here, though, regardless of the feedback, all investigators submitting a pre-proposal are welcome and eligible to prepare and submit a full proposal. So we will provide feedback where we either encourage or not encourage the PIs to submit a full proposal. However, you are still eligible to submit a full proposal, and it will be reviewed along with the other proposals. So at the full proposal stage, all the proposals are reviewed by 3 external reviewers outside the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so these are reviewers we identify that are experts in the field. We also host a technical review panel to go through all the reviews, and then a decision is made to identify those 4 to 6 projects we want to fund. So decisions to encourage or not encourage are based both on the pre-proposal reviews and our expected funding levels. And it's really designed to minimize extra work for potential applicants. We can only fund 4 to 6 of these projects. So we don't want to waste anybody's time or add extra workload if we don't encourage that proposal. But if you do decide to submit a full proposal, it will be reviewed just like all the other proposals and considered. So any comments from the pre-proposal review process will be sent to all applicants who submitted a pre-proposal, and prospective PIs are strongly recommended to consider and address any comments as they develop their full proposal application. And again, the request for full proposals will be issued prior to March 14th or by March 14th, 2025. And at this point, I would like to hand it over to Sarah Stallman, who is going to spend a few minutes to provide some more details on the outreach expectations, including outreach plans.
All right, thank you, Sean. Let me get my presentation up and going here. All right. All right, so hi everyone. I am Sarah Stallman. I am the extension leader for Pennsylvania Sea Grant. I'm going to be talking for the next 10 or so minutes about the outreach plan portion of your proposal and how you can make your proposals more competitive by planning for effective engagement strategies and outreach strategies. So to start, what is outreach? This is used interchangeably with the word extension, so you might see that in the presentation as well. But essentially what both of these terms are referring to, the way I like to put it, is bridging the gap between science and people. So taking scientific and more technical information and bringing it down to a more digestible level where decision makers can make policy decisions or management decisions, or the information can be used to help foster behavior change. So the outreach portion of your proposal, the outreach plan, is where you're really going to answer the question, why or so what? So why are you doing the research that you're doing? We know that the research should meet the needs of the interest holders in the communities that we're serving, and it should also have some kind of a benefit to the end user. So that outreach plan is going to be the space where you can share things like, one, how do you know that the research that you're conducting is needed? Has there been engagement with the community? Has there been a needs assessment done, or do you plan to do a needs assessment? Is this building off prior research? So kind of some work on the front end of why you're doing what you're doing, but also kind of on that back end of how do you plan to put those research results into practice and be able to connect with your chosen audience once you do have the results. And so, again, this portion of the proposal is very important to the goals and mission of Pennsylvania Sea Grant. So you want to make sure that the research proposals that you're submitting feature strong research, but also have the accompanied meaningful community engagement and extension components. And those are the proposals that are going to be considered more competitive. So how can we build these strong outreach plans? We really encourage you to try to think beyond traditional methods of sharing information, like, writing a peer-reviewed article in a journal or attending a professional conference. These are great ways to share information. However, they can be limiting. So a lot of the end users that you might be trying to reach with the research that you're doing, they may not have access or be exposed to reading that scientific article, and they're probably not going to be attending scientific conferences. So we really encourage you to think outside the box on more different and unique ways that you can convey information and engage with various audiences. So that might make some of you uncomfortable if you're not super familiar with outreach or extension, or it's just not your forte, but don't fear, that's what we're here for. So we're really encouraging you to partner with Pennsylvania Sea Grant Extension or other outreach organizations that you might be connected with, so that we can really help leverage the research that you're doing and the connections that you can make and how you can share that information. So there's a couple examples of different types of engagement and extension activities. This is not an exhaustive list. So of course, if you think of something that fits with your research in a way that's not listed here, that's always a good thing as well. We're thinking about things like looking at needs assessments and soliciting community input for different projects that you're doing. You may need to facilitate focus groups or listening sessions, and that can be a way that extension can assist there. Developing new education and outreach programming, forming collaborations or bringing partners together, information sharing in different ways, developing outreach materials that can be shared, and developing a way to share them with the target audience, hosting workshops or trainings. You might feature your work on a podcast or even host a podcast or a webinar, participate in tabling events or booths, do projects or engage in activities that facilitate action or behavior change in some way, or potentially provide technical support to a particular user group. So I just wanted to provide an example of what I mean about this kind of partnership between research and extension. So this was a research project looking at mystery snail populations in Erie on Presque Isle State Park, and looking also at how they're impacting native species there. And so researchers connected with Pennsylvania Sea Grant to develop various outreach programming that was done in partnership with a local brewery. So we had access to a number of members of the public that were visiting. There were a number of unique tabling opportunities, things like mystery snail races, where participants were able to learn about the species and learn about aquatic invasive species prevention while participating in races and making bids, and just really fun ways to learn about information. So this is kind of what we mean about the unique opportunities that could be thought up for different research projects. And this opportunity also helped to link Sea Grant education resources and help expose the public to those. And also thinking about things like evaluation. So this provided a really great opportunity to evaluate knowledge gained from the public because of these events. And so after these events that we did, 83% said they will always or very often take action to prevent the spread of AIS. So again, just one example of what that partnership could potentially look like. So kind of just a summary of outreach plan considerations from what I've been talking about so far. One thing is you want to be clear about societal relevance of the work that you're doing. So how will the results connect with policy and or management decisions? And how will the results foster behavior change? What potential new knowledge or tools would result from your project, and why is it needed? Who can use that knowledge aside from other scientists, and what might they use it for? Things like decision making or improving practices or increasing profitability, reducing risk. And would there be an improvement in social, economic, or environmental conditions if the knowledge and tool was implemented? And then again, community engagement considerations. So was that interest holder or community feedback considered for the study? How will the results of the study reach those end users outside of the scientific community? How will the results of the study benefit underserved or underrepresented communities and groups? How do you intend to implement your engagement strategies? And what are some unique and creative ways to reach end users? So these are all pieces to be thinking about and considering as you're developing your outreach plan that's going to add kind of that competitive touch to it. Some structure things, you want to make sure that you stick to the 1-page limit and clearly define who your end user audience is and why you chose them and what you essentially hope for them to do with the research information that you're sharing. You also want to clearly communicate what types of products will be created to communicate your results, and identify any of those engagement activities that you might use for reaching your target audience. You also want to be clear about the benefits or the impacts that you anticipate will result from the work. So things like, will managers be able to make better decisions regarding a particular issue? Will new method to manage a specific problem be developed? And will a key group have new tools to address an important issue pertaining to ecosystem-based management? And then last, the evaluation strategy. So how are you going to measure your success in being able to reach audiences with the tools or the knowledge that you've developed from your research? So how can Sea Grant help with all of this? It's a lot of information. We are here to help. As Sean mentioned earlier, we really encourage you to contact us early because that can help us to have enough time to be able to have these conversations about potential outreach approaches and audiences that might fit best with the research that you're doing. And it can also increase the likelihood that we're going to have the time to be able to potentially commit. You do not have to write Sea Grant staff into your proposal, but there are potential opportunities for that to happen. So it's just going to depend on, the level of effort required on the part of Sea Grant to assist with your project if that's needed, and potential availability of other funding that we might have already supporting that topic. So definitely reach out so we can have those conversations and figure that out early so that you can plan your proposals appropriately. And then there are going to be potential instances where we don't have the capacity or we don't have somebody that's necessarily working in that specific area where you're submitting a proposal. So we can potentially help identify others who could potentially be engaged with you if we cannot do that. And then just a few things that we might be able to provide for you information-wise as you're developing your proposals and thinking about outreach. We may have access already, depending on your topic, to existing needs assessments of end users that you're planning to focus on. We may have access to audiences, interest holders, volunteers, or community scientists that are important for your work. We may be able to offer insights to things like outreach venues and opportunities that are already in place to support the work that you'd like to do, or potentially know willing partners that we could connect you with. Same with things like social science, we may be aware and be able to connect you with existing social science for the particular topic that you're working on. And then again, we can help locate more appropriate engagement partners if Sea Grant is not the right partner for you. So if you go to our website, seagrant.psu.edu, you can see a number of our extension staff listed here and various topics that we work on. Again, this isn't exhaustive, so if you don't particularly see that topic, just reach out and we can have a discussion. We work in different areas and all have different areas of expertise. So do check us out on the website. You can directly reach out to one of these extension agents if you'd like, but you can also just reach out to me, talk to me about what you're planning, and I can think of the most appropriate person to connect you with so that you can have conversations about your proposal. So I think that's it for me, and I will turn it back over to Sean at this point.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that in the overview. We are starting to get some questions in the Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to use the Q&A function or the chat function. Either is fine with me. And I'm trying my best as we go through this to answer those. If I don't totally answer your question the way you had hoped, please reach out to me after the webinar and offline. I'm happy to have conversations with folks. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our communications lead, Kelly Donaldson, who just wanted to provide a brief overview of communications and how it connects with the research.
Thank you, Sean. Yes. Hi, everybody. So I'm the communications lead for the program. And I just wanted to share with you, so for the pre-proposal process, communications is not necessarily an aspect that you need to be mindful of when writing your pre-proposal. However, when, for projects that do receive funding, communications is an aspect that we'll definitely need to circle up. So I wanted to just kind of introduce myself and make sure you all know where to access the information that you may need. So on our website, which is just seagrant.psu.edu, you can go to the research tab navigation where you can find projects and resources for researchers. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you today. You may have already been here, but just in case not, information about the pre-proposal is here. Here's, all of the things that you need to plan ahead, access to the strategic plan, access to Sean's contact information, that kind of thing. Here are all the forms. They're all available for download as PDFs, except for one. The budget form is an Excel spreadsheet. but the rest are PDFs that you can access. This will have a recording of today's webinar, so if you want to come back to it, you certainly can. Accessing the Sea Grant logo, you can download it right from our website, so easy peasy, it's all here for you. And then here is Sean's contact information. Some of the ways that for projects that do receive funding, we want to promote the work. We want to promote the story, the issue, the people involved. And there are many ways that we do that. It could be a press release. It could be a feature story on the website. Social media platforms. We currently have Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are platforms that we utilize to share stories and information. And then also video. So actually just today, we are launching and releasing a series of 8 research-focused videos that have been produced. And so now this is not something that's required, but certainly it's a great opportunity to tell the story, tell the research, be out in the field, in the lab. So just please do keep that in mind as an opportunity. The other thing is that one thing we always need is photos. And I know it's kind of one, and again, for folks that move forward with their projects, we'll talk about it again, but taking photos when you're in the field with different activities is really important. So just something to kind of, I just wanted to put that out there on the front end to be mindful of, thinking about your project and how to talk about it and show it to our audiences. So that's really kind of it. I wanted to introduce myself, let you know where to look on the website. If you have any questions or any ideas for stories as things move forward, reach out to me, and certainly we'll be talking again. So that's all I had. Thanks very much, Sean.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, we'd like to open it to any questions. Folks have been submitting questions along the way, so you can review the Q&A. I think there's a way that we can capture that and send it out along with the webinar recording as well. So feel free, I'll provide a couple minutes here. If there's any questions that you may have, you want to ask now. In addition, feel free to reach out to me offline, and I'd be happy to connect with you and answer any questions you may have. Excuse me. So I am not seeing any additional questions coming in. So with that said, again, please reach out to me with any questions. You can reach out to Sarah regarding any questions regarding the extension, regarding the environmental literacy workforce development focus area. Please reach out to Michelle Niedermeyer. Any communications questions, feel free to connect with Kelly. But I think considering there's no additional questions, I think we'll give you 15 minutes of your day back. And we thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Kelly, for setting up the webinar and getting all the logistics. That is a huge help to me. I appreciate it. Even after all these years of doing Zoom now, it's always cumbersome. So I appreciate your time.
John, I did just see another question in the question and answer, and I thought I saw a hand go up. I don't know if that was a mistake or if somebody had a question, but we might want to stay on just a few minutes in case there's additional questions. Do you see it? A question about matching funds?
Sorry, I got something in my throat. So where do the matching funds usually come from? Great question. These have to be non-federal funds. So typically we see if you're at a state-related institution, that funding comes from salary as match. That comes from the university or institution. We've seen loss of indirect cost, equipment cost. I encourage you, I think on page 13 of the guidance provides an overview of sort of what we've seen over the years where the match can come from. So examples of cost share or matching sources include non-federally supported salaries, wages, and benefits of those working on the project, expendable supplies and equipment, boat time or ship time, donated volunteer time, supplies, space or equipment, tuition waivers for students, and unrecovered indirect costs. So yeah, they come from a whole host of categories. I don't know if we have Shelly on here still, if she's able to talk, if she wanted to provide any additional guidance on that based on your experience.
Yeah, I am still here. I think the list was pretty comprehensive on page 13, but if there are other things that you'd like to maybe consider, just let us know and we can work with you, certainly.
Perfect. Thank you, Shelly. All right, going once, going twice, sold. Again, thank you, everyone, and I look forward to receiving your applications.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.